Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel where today we are going to be talking about a variety of ways that you can support authors. Now, I've been wanting to do this video for a while and I finally decided that now is the time. So we're going to talk about a lot of different ways that you can support authors. A lot of them do require some amount of money, but not all of them do. And so just wanted to make sure that if that's a concern for you, there will be ways that you can support an author that are free. That being said, obviously this is just a suggestion, a list of suggestions. You can pick and choose whatever you want to do, whether, dependent on your resources, both money and time. Do what you want. And along with that, obviously you can choose to support different authors at different levels. Like, I am kind of a little bit off the deep end with how much I support Seanan McGuire because I really just want her to continue writing forevermore. And not every, there are other authors I support in a much lesser way. So you get to, again, when it comes to a specific author, you can pick and choose as well. So let's go ahead and just jump right in and start with the biggest one, and that is buy their books. I know it's super, super obvious, but it still needs to be said. Buy their books. If you know that there is something that's coming out soon, you can go ahead and pre-order it, apart from the fact that you're going to get the book right away, which is awesome. It also signals interest to the publisher. If you if you don't pre-order, you can also buy it in that first week of release, which is important because that is the week that every author has the best possible chance to make it onto a bestsellers list. And the reason that's good is because it does offer a lot of exposure. There are people out there in the world that actually do go and read these bestseller lists to see what pops up on there. Some people only like to read books from bestseller lists because it is seen as a stamp of a quality, essentially. And then of course, the next author's book, the publisher can put on the cover, best-selling author, and then that also can catch the eye of people in the bookstore. So more people are just will know about it, number one, and then be willing to try it, number two, which is good. So we like authors to be on bestseller lists. But even if you can't get to it in that first week, just purchase the book. Buy the book. Then that includes backlist titles. So in case you're wondering, this entire shelf is Seanan McGuire because I have purchased the majority of her backlist. And that's me signaling to the publisher that please continue to buy her books so that I can have her books, right? And just in case you're wondering, as far as I know, there's not a huge difference between the different types. So ebook versus audiobook versus physical book. I do believe physical book is a little bit better, but honestly, as long as you're legally buying it, it's all good. It's signaling to the publisher that there's interest, and it is frequently getting money into the pocket of the author. And if you are so inclined, you can even consider buying multiple copies of your favorite books to have on hand to lend out to people as you are telling them, saying, hey, you should read this. Here you go. Have one of my lending copies of it. It's one of those things that I have considered doing, especially with the Toby Day series, so that I can just pull it off my shelf and say, here you go. And I don't have to worry about them never giving it back to me because I already have my own copy. And then if you don't want to purchase new, you can always purchase used from a thrift store or a used bookstore, or even getting it from a little library, which is more of a take one, leave one free books section. That doesn't have as big of an impact on the money bottom line of authors, but having a really robust secondhand book market is extremely good for all authors. And the reason is because like people are more willing to try things that are outside their norm when they know that either A, they can pick it up from the local used bookstore for only a couple bucks, or B, if they bought it new, they can sell it to the local used bookstore and make a couple bucks back. And so when you have this really robust system, people are just much more willing to try things that they maybe wouldn't otherwise, which is good for everybody. So if you're getting your books from if you're getting your books used, that is still extremely good. Just a little bit differently than like purchasing them new. And then of course, if you want to, you can always go ahead and go to your library. The library does purchase multiple copies of almost everything that they buy, and checking those books out is obviously signaling to the library that there is still interest in that particular book, which is good. And obviously, if they don't have it, you can always request the materials, and frequently they will buy requested materials, which is excellent. And if you're requesting the materials because you actually want to read it, if for some reason they are choosing to not purchase it, they will generally find that book from a different library close by so that you can still read it, which is just such an awesome service. And then just real quick, I do want to talk about where you purchase the books. A local bookstore is generally best. However, like if you choose to shop on Amazon, I'm not going to wag my finger at you. However, Amazon is not a great place to purchase books for a variety of reasons, which I can get into if you want me to. Let me know down below. But generally the best place is a local bookstore, whether that's an independent bookstore or like a big chain like Barnes and Noble. And then lastly, let's just touch on downloading illegal downloads. You guys, that does not help support an author. Like, I know that there are people that are like, but I'm helping. And like, no, you're not. You're not helping them. You're actively hurting them. You are stealing books. That is not helpful. There's not a whole lot of room for like any gray area on this. This is just you're actively stealing. Now, again, piracy is a pretty big, slightly complicated issue, and I can definitely talk more in depth about it if you would like me to. But the bottom line is, stealing books is bad. It's stealing. So, I would prefer, if you want to support authors, you actually need to purchase the books. Or again, get it from somebody who has legally purchased it. And then going into other ways that you can use your money to support an author, there's often a lot of ways you can directly support them, like Patreon or PayPal or something. Some authors have those set up, especially full-time authors, because a lot of them do not want to have to go back to a full-time job. And so they may set up a Patreon to kind of offset some of the expenses, and especially because authors generally are paid pretty erratically. So something like a Patreon, you can't, if you are interested in a Patreon, a lot of them have them linked on their website, so you can just go to their website and see if they've got something. Also on their website, they may have merchandise. Not a ton of authors do this, but if they do, that is often a way that you can also directly support them, as well as advertise your favorite book, and maybe somebody else can find that new favorite book. And then lastly is Kickstarter. I have seen some interesting Kickstarters. There's it's not infrequent that it's like a short story collection, and it's usually like, help me kickstart the money so that I can pay the authors of these short stories. But sometimes it's like a single author who is saying, I want to write this book on speculation, meaning nobody's bought it yet, but I need my living expenses taken care of. And so they'll kickstart the money to take care of their living expenses. So you can check to see if they're doing anything like that. And then, so let's move away from the monetary support and how you can be extremely supportive when maybe you don't have as much money to spend, or maybe you don't want to spend. And the biggest thing is word of mouth. And that is just letting people know that this is about your favorite author, about your favorite book, about your favorite series. The more people that have heard of the author, book, series, whatever, the more people that are willing to try them. The more that are willing to try them, the more that are going to like it. And when you have a fan base that is larger, it's just much more likely that authors will get contracts for new books, and those contracts will be more lucrative, which again, we don't want authors to have to worry about living expenses. We just kind of want them to write. So word of mouth. There's a couple ways you can do that. Obviously, if you have a platform like BookTube or Bookstagram or a book blog, that's a really easy way. You just mention them as often as you want to, do a dedicated review for a book. Obviously, I have done this with Shauna McGuire. I am rereading an entire series from her, and all of my book reviews are for that series. I am trying to get word out about this series, right? However, if you're not on any of that, which I totally understand, and you are willing to actually write reviews, leaving written reviews on Goodreads or Amazon is also incredibly helpful. And if that is not something you're interested in, even at least clicking on a rating for the books that you have read is still incredibly helpful as well. You can also just recommend these books, this author, whatever, to your family and friends. I have done this. I straight up handed the first book for the October Days series to my mom and said, "You have to read this." And then she did, and she loved it. And now she has purchased all of Shauna McGuire's books. So I mean, it's not a huge impact, but it is something. And my mom will turn around and talk to other people about it. And that's a really good thing too. Additionally, you may find it's a little bit easier to get a buddy or family member to read a book if you offer to buddy read it with them, which is what I did with my friend Tina recently. So she had never read anything by Shauna McGuire. I suggested that we buddy read Every Heart a Doorway, and she agreed, and now she's just like, "This is amazing." It's like, yes. But she was much more willing to do it because I was reading it with her. And then lastly, you can actually nominate books for awards. Now, I think that the Goodreads Choice Awards are a little bit silly. However, I have found that when I go and look at the nominees, I'll occasionally put them on my TBR. So, it's putting the book in front of a lot of different people, especially if you can get enough. Obviously, you have to get enough votes to put it in front of people, but seriously consider just nominating the books for awards. And then the last category of ways you can support authors are a little bit miscellaneous. So sometimes authors will go on book tours, and so go to the author events. So that may require money. Sometimes you have to buy a ticket to get in. Frequently, you're going to have to purchase a copy of the book, or if you already own the book, sometimes bookstores will let you not purchase a copy, but then it's kind of good manners to purchase a different book, because you want to make sure that the bookstore is making enough money to have it make sense to support, to continue hosting those kinds of events. But it's also a show of support when a bookstore is packed for an author event. It signals to the author that they are well loved, well appreciated, and it also signals that to the publisher. You can actually you can send a letter to a publisher if there is a series that you would like to continue that is maybe on the rocks or has already been kind of dropped. So this is something that I am planning to do for 47 North, Amazon's publishing imprint. And because they have not contracted Shauna McGuire for another book in the indexing series, and I really want one. So and she said that she is game for a third book. So I have every intention of sending them a letter. I just have to figure out how to do that. Once I do, I'll let you guys know. But so you can do that. You can be active in fandom, whether that's through fan fiction or fan art or meetups, or honestly just like ditzing around on Tumblr in the fandom tags, whatever it is. But having an active and loyal following is really how the Veronica Mars movie got made. So it was pretty obvious that there was still this huge fandom after so many years, and so the creators felt pretty confident putting up a Kickstarter for the movie. And while the Kickstarter wasn't intended to ever raise enough money to actually make the movie, what it did was it was a high enough like goal that they were able to go back to the film companies and say, see, people want this. And so that's how the movie got made, is that people were just active in the fandom. And then lastly, one of the things that you can do is to email your author how much you appreciated their books. So obviously we want to support authors in a monetary kind of way so that they have the time and space to be able to write, but we also want to make sure that they understand that their work is so appreciated. And so if their work means so much to you, let them know. It can be a real simple, hey, I read this book and I loved it. Thank you so much for writing it. Because honestly, knowing that your work is being appreciated is just, there's nothing else like it. So I would strongly encourage you to consider writing a nice little note to your author. But that's it, you guys. Obviously, this is not an exhaustive list. If you have any other ideas, please let me know down below. But that's all I've got. So until next time, have happy reading, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.